Good morning, all. Warm welcome to everybody. Today, I would like to make a speech on Mahatma, Ayyankali, and Enlightened Voice of Kerala. This speech has been made as per the request of Dr. Shaji A, the Director, Center for Buddhist Studies, Sri Shankaracharya University, Kaladi. Mahatma Ayyankali was a prominent social reformer from Kerala who played a very pivotal role in challenging the social institutions faced by the Dalits, particularly the Pulayar community during the 19th and 20th centuries. His efforts towards achieving social justice and this equality have left an indelible mark on the history of Kerala. This lecture explores the life, contributions and enduring legacy of Ayyankali as an enlightened voice of Kerala. He championed the cause of his communitymen who were suffered through forced labor and violation of human rights, and he led protest movements for legitimate in wages, a right to walk along the public roads and the right to education. In 1939, the Sadhujana Paripalana Yogam was changed as Pule Mahasabha that has been enacted as a result of the wishes of Mahatma Ayyankali. Sadhujana Paripalana this Sabha Yogam has been started because of his initiative. And Ayyankali was nominated as Rimulam Prajasabha in 1912, and he continued is in this capacity as a member for 25 years. Mahatma Ayyankali understood that education was a crucial tool for the upliftment of the oppressed classes. Ayyankali recognized education as a powerful tool for social empowerment and fought for the rights of Dalit children to attend the schools. At that time, when the caste system was rigidly enforced, Dalit children were often denied access to education. Ayyankali established schools specially for the Dalit children, and in 1904 he founded a school in Venganur, his native place, native village, which was one of the first schools in Kerala that admitted Dalit students. This move was a revolutionary activity, and he faced a stiff resistance from the upper caste communities. Ayyankali led a significant protest in 1907 known as Villuvandi agitation. This was a direct action against the prohibition of Dalit children from entering into government schools. The protest was met with violence, but it drew widespread attention to the issue and eventually led to the changes in the educational policies from the part of the government. Ayyankali's persistent efforts forced the Travancore government to reconsider its stand on education, and his lobbying and advocacy efforts resulted in the government issuing orders to admit their children to schools. This was a landmark achievement in the struggle for Dalit rights. In addition to focusing on education of the Dalit boys, Ayyankali also emphasized the importance of educating Dalit girls as well. He supported the initiatives that aimed to provide education to Dalit girls, challenging the prevailing norms that kept women, especially from marginalized communities, out of the educational institutions. His efforts led to the government issuing an order in 1907 that allowed the children from Dalit community to attend the schools. Despite facing violent opposition from the upper caste, Ayyankali's perseverance ensured that education became more accessible to the marginalized communities. Another important area in which Ayyankali has made his stamp was in the field of social norms, challenging the social norms. Mahatma Ayyankali was a revolutionary figure who challenged the oppressive social norms of his time, especially those rooted in the rigid caste system. His efforts were instrumental in promoting social justice and equality for the Dalit community in Kerala. Ayyankali directly confronted the caste system that relegated the Dalits to the lowest social strata. By demanding equal rights to Dalits, he challenged the deeply entrenched beliefs and practices that justifies the caste-based discrimination and untouchability. Ayyankali defied the restrictions on Dalits entering public spaces and using public facilities. In 1893, for example, he rode a bullock cart through the public roads of Enganur, a privilege which has been reserved to the upper caste people. This act of defiance, known as Villuvandi agitation, symbolized the fight against caste-based mobility restrictions. Ayyankali organized agricultural laborers, predominantly from the Dalit community, to demand their wages and better working conditions. He led strikes and protests against the exploitative practices of landlords, challenging the economic oppression faced by the Dalit people. He encouraged the Dalits to assert their religious and cultural identity. He supported the establishment of Dalit temples and cultural organizations, challenging the monopoly of upper caste over the religious and cultural spaces. And his followers faced social ostracism along with Ayyankali and violence from the upper caste communities. Despite this, he continued to assert their rights and resist attempts to marginalize them further. Ayyankali's resilience in the face of such challenges inspired others to stand up against social justice. He promoted inter-caste dining and encouraged progressive practices that defied the norms of social segregation. By advocating for inter-caste marriages and communal harmony, he challenged the rigid boundaries maintained by the caste system. Ayyankali also focused on the upliftment of Dalit women, and his ability to mobilize the Dalit community and lead them in the collective action was a direct challenge to the social order that sought to keep Dalit fragmented and powerless. His leadership united the community and inspired widespread movements for social change. His challenges to social norms of his time were pivotal to the struggle for Dalit rights and the social justice in Kerala. His bold actions and unwavering commitment to equality not only disrupted the oppressive social order but also laid the groundwork for future generations to continue the fight against caste-based discrimination and inequality. Ayyankali organized a series of non-violent protests and agitations to demand social rights for Dalits. One of the most notable acts of defense was the Kallumala agitation, where Dalit women discarded their stone-bed necklaces or Kallumala, which were symbolic of their lower social status. This movement was a powerful statement against the caste-based discrimination and oppression. He was a champion of women's rights and fought against the oppressive practices that discriminated against the Dalit women. One of his most notable achievements was the Dalits' rise to cover up their upper bodies. Until in the early 20th century, Dalit women were forced to leave their breasts bare as a sign of low status and servility. They were also subjected to sexual harassment and violence by the upper caste men. Ayyankali challenged this inhuman custom and led a mass agitation similar to this Marumakkal Samaram. And the revolt began in 1895 when Ayyankali's wife Chellamma and his sister-in-law Kuttiyamma wore upper clothes and walked along the public roads. They were attacked by a group of higher caste men who tore off their clothes and beat up them. Ayyankali rushed to their rescue and fought back the assailants. This incident sparked protests and clashes across Travancore, involving thousands of Dalit women who defied the ban and covering their breasts. The revolt lasted for more than 2 decades until the Maharaja of Travancore issued a proclamation in 1916 that allowed all categories of women to wear upper clothes regardless of their caste. Another essential aspect of Ayyankali's movement was the right to education of the Dalit women that we have already pointed out here. And he organized mass meetings and cultural events for Dalit women where they could express their grievances, aspirations, and talents. He encouraged them to participate in the political and social activities of the organization Sadhu Jana Pariparana Sangam, which he himself was responsible for its foundation. The Chalia riots were another important intervention from the part of Ayyankali and his followers. And these riots were a series of violent clashes that erupted in the princely state of Travancore in 1893, and the riots were triggered by the defiant act of Ayyankali, who rode an ox cart along the public road forbidden for the lower caste. Upper caste men who considered themselves as lords of the land were outraged by Ayyankali's challenge to their authority and privileges. They attacked him and his cart, but Ayyankali fought back and defended himself. This sparked a chain of events that led to the widespread violence and bloodshed between the upper caste men and Dalits, especially the Pule community. The riots lasted for a year and resulted in the death of many higher caste men and the Pule community people. And the Travancore government tried to suppress the riots by deploying police and military forces, but they were ineffective. The British government also intervened and mediated between the conflicting parties, and the riots finally ended in 1894 after the compromise was reached between the higher caste people and the Dalits. Before Ayyankali's movement, education in Kerala was highly unequal and discriminatory. The education system was dominated by the Brahmins and other upper castes who had access to the traditional school of learning called Kalaris and Eduthupallis. These schools taught subjects such as languages, literature, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, and Ayurveda. The lower caste people, especially the Dalits, were denied the right to education and literacy, and they were not allowed to use public roads, enter temples, or even cover their upper bodies. The colonial missionaries and the British government introduced the modern school education system in Kerala in the 19th century, and they established schools for the lower caste and Christians, but they faced resistance and hostility from the upper caste and the Hindu Orthodoxy. Ayyankali advocated for universal suffrage and land reforms, which were essential for social and economic upliftment of the Dalits. Srimulam Tirunal, the Maharaja of Travancore, helped him in his educational reforms. Kumaranashan, a renowned poet and social reformer who also fought for the same purpose, considered the lower than the Nair community but higher than the Dalits, a disciple of Sri Narayana Guru, also helped him in his social and educational activism. As far as the political engagement of Mahatma Ayyankali was concerned, Ayyankali became the first Dalit to be nominated to the Srimulam Popular Assembly or Srimulam Praja Sabha, the Legislative Council of the Princely State of Travancore. This nomination was a groundbreaking achievement and recognition of his leadership and influence. Mahatma Ayyankali's political engagement was a pivotal aspect of his work and advocating for the rights and welfare of the Dalits in Kerala. His efforts were characterized by a strategic approach to challenging the entrenched social norms and policies that perpetuated the discrimination and inequality. He also focused on improving the working conditions of the agricultural laborers, who were predominantly the Dalit category of people. He organized the first strike of agricultural laborers in 1907, demanding better wages and working conditions. This strike, though initially met with resistance, eventually led to some improvements in their working conditions. Mahatma Ayyankali worked with Sri Narayana Guru, the prominent social reformer of Kerala, to promote the social equality and challenge the caste discrimination. Their collaboration strengthened the movement for social reform and brought together different marginalized communities in fight for justice. Ayyankali supported the establishment of Dalit temples and cultural organizations, promoting cultural and religious identity of the Dalits. By encouraging Dalits to assert their religious and cultural identity, Ayyankali challenged the dominance of upper caste religious practices. The Temple Entry Proclamation of 1936 was a historical declaration issued by Maharaja Chittiru Tirunal Balaramavan, 12th November 1936. The proclamation abolished the ban on the so-called low-caste people or Avarnas from entering Hindu temples in the princely state of Travancore. And Ayyankali had been campaigning for temple entry since 1895, when he led a group of Dalit to worship at Balaramapuram temple. He faced a stiff opposition from the Orthodox Purohits, who considered him a polluter of their sacred space. Ayyankali persisted in his efforts and gained support from the reformers like Srinarayana Guru. After 4 decades of agitation, Ayyankali witnessed the historic proclamation of Maharaja Chittiru Tirunal Balaramavarma that opened the doors of temples to all categories of Hindus, irrespective of their caste distinctions. The proclamation was a milestone in the history of Travancore and Kerala, and it marked the end of centuries of caste-based discrimination and oppression, especially with regard to the right to enter into the temples and worship the deities. It is also paved the way for more inclusive and egalitarian society, where the people could enjoy their religious freedom and dignity. Mahatma Ayyankali's contributions have been recognized and celebrated in various forms. His relentless efforts laid the foundation for subsequent social reform movements in Kerala. His life and work have inspired numerous leaders and activists in the struggle for social justice and equality. His legacy continues to influence contemporary social and political discourses in Kerala and beyond. Ayyankali's life and work have inspired generations of Dalit leaders and activists. His courage, his resilience, and strategic approach to social reform serve as a model for these fightings for social justice and equality. His legacy continues to motivate ongoing efforts to combat caste-based discrimination and promote social justice in India. Ayyankali is honored through numerous statues, memorials, and public spaces named after him. These serve as reminders of his contribution and keep his legacy alive in public memory. His life and work are included in educational curricula, ensuring that future generations learn about his contributions to social justice. His activism influenced significant policy changes, including the admission of Dalit children to public schools and the improvement of labor conditions for Dalits. His efforts laid the groundwork for subsequent legislative reforms aimed at promoting equality and protecting the rights of marginalized communities. Mahatma Ayyankali's legacy is marked by his unwavering commitment to social justice, equality, and upliftment of the Dalit community. His pioneering efforts in education, labor rights, and political representation have had a lasting impact, inspiring future generations to continue the fight against caste-based discrimination and for a more inclusive society. Ayyankali's life and work remain a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and strategic action in the pursuit of justice. Mahatma Ayyankali's life is a testament to the power of resilience and determination in the face of systematic oppression. As an enlightened voice of Kerala, he not only challenged the entrenched caste system but also paved the way for future generations to continue the fight for equality and justice. His legacy remains a guiding light for social reformers and activists committed to creating a more inclusive and equitable society. Thank you very much. Thank you all.